The policeman found tiny bags of drugs, so the girl was ordered to go to rehab and forced to take frequent drug tests. But after she missed one, police went to her apartment and found more drugs hidden under the couch cushions. So they ordered her to go to prison or work for them. She agreed, and the officers wired her purse with a hidden recorder. They sent her with a case full of cash to meet two dangerous men to buy guns and drugs. With no protection or training, when she arrived, the suspects suddenly changed the location, meaning the police lost sight of her, and before they could find her again, the criminals discovered the wire in her purse. She was kidnapped, driven miles away, and was killed with one of the guns she was supposed to buy. Her parents were devastated, fighting for new rules to protect informants. And when it passed, they named it Rachel's Law, so no one forgets what it cost her. The policeman found tiny bags of drugs, so the girl was ordered to go to rehab and forced to take frequent drug tests. But after she missed one, police went to her apartment and found more drugs. As you step down, a spring attached to the step gets stretched, letting it sink down slowly. And once you step off, the spring gets latched into place. This makes each step feel softer while storing the energy of your movement in the spring. When you walk up, a sensor in the floor detects the pressure from your foot. And as you shift your weight forward to the next step, the latch unlocks, which pulls the previous step up with the spring, meaning you need less energy to climb the stairs. As you step down, a spring attached to the step gets stretched, letting it sink down slowly. And once you step off, the spring gets latched into place. This makes each step feel softer while storing. If you drop a spider into a beer glass, the sides could be too smooth for it to climb out, so it could stick a strand of silk to one wall and attach the other end to the opposite side. Then it adds another strand above it and another, slowly building a web higher and higher up the glass and using it to climb out. But spiders only have so much silk to use, and each new line drains energy, meaning if the glass is too tall, the spider could run out of silk before reaching the rim and die before it finishes the web and escapes. If you drop a spider, when winter came, she fed her children instead of herself, starving to death right in front of them. You see, her family had fled into the wilderness almost 30 years earlier, and the girl was born there, completely away from civilization, missing the end of World War II, the moon landing, and the invention of modern technology. They scraped by through careful hunting and constant foraging. Decades later, researchers accidentally found their cabin. The girl ate salt for the first time and saw her first TV. But even though they offered to bring them back to their village, the family refused. Sadly, her brothers and sisters soon got sick and died, and then her father passed away in his sleep. But the girl still refused to leave. And to this day, she still lives alone in the wilderness. When winter came, he drilled two giant rings together before inflating the plastic ball inside. Then he slid through the narrow opening before stepping off the dock and into the water. You see, he wanted to run over 1,000 miles across the Bermuda Triangle to get donations for charity. But just 2 days later, the Coast Guard found him drifting, lost and confused. At first, he refused to accept their help, and it took him 3 days to finally give up. So they used a helicopter, a plane, and even a cargo ship to fish him out, costing over $100,000 in taxpayer money. And 2 years later, he tried to do it again. But this time, the Coast Guard immediately stopped his bubble and dragged him back to shore. He drilled two. As a kid, your brain is constantly experiencing new things. Your first time eating a lemon, your first time riding a bike, or your first time winning a prize. And some say this is why time feels slower, because there's so much new information to process. But as you get older, things that were once new now feel old and boring. So your brain just forgets parts of your day, since you don't need to remember every single thing, and this makes time feel faster. But when something happens that breaks the routine, it gives you a new experience. This makes your brain work harder as it absorbs new information, which makes time slow down once again. As a kid, your brain is They would dump snow into a mold before slamming the top down to push out any air. Then they're stacked in a spiral shape around a special pole, which helps keep it perfectly circular. Then the blocks are shaved. When you press the button, when you aim at the fly and pull the trigger, a cartridge in the handle, pour the water. He climbed into If you happen to get kidney stones, you could ride a roller coaster and let the shakes dislodge them from the tissue walls. Then, as the coaster moves, the change in speed shakes your whole body, and this makes them move into your bladder, where they can finally pass through when you pee. Now, not every ride is able to do this, but Disney's Big Thunder Mountain does this so well that some people go there just to get rid of their kidney stones. If you happen to when you slice a watermelon in half and in half again, then cut it into wedges, the sticky juices cover your face as you eat. He throws his body backward when the ball is in the air and lifts his non-kicking leg first to gain height. At the peak of the motion, he snaps his kicking leg forward. He spreads his arms for balance, and his eyes stay locked on the ball until contact. And once he strikes, he lands on his arms and back to absorb the impact while the ball makes its way toward the goal. The flies lay the eggs inside the cheese, and when they hatch, the plane goes straight up and releases the bomb before flying upside down and backwards. As it straightens up and flies away, it stays out of enemy range. At the same time, the bomb rises high into the sky, arcing toward the target. And when it reaches its highest point, it drops back down toward the target. By the time it hits, the aircraft is far enough away to avoid the blast. The plane goes to get the ship inside the bottle. If you pour high-proof alcohol into an empty gas tank, they would pee on rags, then tie them around their... Rub the mushroom on... He took a photo of the iceberg. To make BB-8 roll, with scissors, they cut away. He built a 40... He marked the tiles with invisible... He suddenly choked on a piece of... If the cruise ship died and you used a really long oar to start paddling from the balcony, how hard would it be to row it back to shore? Well, the ship weighs over 200,000 tons, meaning you would need 60 million watts of energy just to move it. And a professionally trained rower can only produce about 300 watts, so you would actually need 200,000 people rowing non-stop. But that many rowers would fill every inch of space on the ship, and all those people would add 17,000 extra tons of weight, meaning you would need even more people, over 220,000, to move all the added weight. But that's enough to sink it before it ever even moves. If the cruise ship died,